It all started on a blistering July afternoon in Flagstaff, Arizona. The kind of day where even the air felt too tired to move. I was standing there in nothing but dripping board shorts and flip-flops. My arms folded tight across my chest, while two uniformed officers sized me up like I had just robbed a bank. Behind them, a woman in a blindingly pink sun hat and ridiculous sunglasses was shrieking like a banshee, her perfectly manicured finger stabbing the air in my direction. "That's him. That's the trespasser," she screamed. The officers didn't even blink. One, a tall guy with a buzz cut and arms like tree trunks, stepped forward. "Sir, can we see some ID? We received a complaint about unauthorized use of private property," he said. His voice neutral but firm. I could barely believe it. Private property? I wasn't part of their HOA. I wasn't even in their neighborhood. My family's ranch had been here since the 1950s, long before their cookie-cutter subdivision popped up with their matching mailboxes and forced holiday decorations. Still dripping pool water onto the pavement. I handed over my driver's license and bit back every smart comment threatening to spill out. I didn't need to make this worse. Karen, and trust me, her name really was Karen, stood behind the officers, arms crossed, smirking like she had already won. The officers retreated to their cruiser, radios crackling. Karen continued to chatter loudly for the crowd forming around the pool, kids in water wings, parents whispering behind their hands, phones coming out to film the show. I closed my eyes for a second, willing myself to stay calm. I knew deep down, this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Karen was making it personal. When the officers returned, the situation went from bad to worse. They confirmed I wasn't part of their HOA but left me with a chilling comment: "If they choose civil action, that's their right." Karen clapped her hands with glee like a toddler getting ice cream. "We'll see you in court," she chirped. And just like that, the real war began. The days that followed were some of the strangest I had ever lived through. At first, after the pool incident, I tried to go about my life like nothing had happened. I figured Karen would stew in her own crazy for a while, maybe fire off a few nasty letters, but eventually move on to terrorize someone else. I was wrong. One muggy afternoon, as I was fixing a loose hinge on the barn door, I spotted a group of people gathered at the edge of my property. They were standing just beyond the old fence line where the HOA subdivision met my ranch. A few men, a few women, and leading them all like some demented parade marshal was none other than Karen herself. Clipboard tucked tight under her arm, barking orders like she owned the place. Beside her, a stocky man with a tomato-red face was gesturing furiously toward my land. I would later learn his name was Rick, the HOA president. "He's squatting on community assets," I heard Rick shout. "We need to bring him under compliance immediately." My hands tightened into fists without me realizing it. Community assets? This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. They were trying to claim my ranch as theirs. The next day, a thick, cheaply printed notice appeared duct-taped to my mailbox. In bold black ink, it read, "Effective immediately. This property falls under the jurisdiction of Red Mesa Heights HOA. Non-compliance will result in enforcement actions." At the bottom was a shaky signature, "Rick Peterson, President." I laughed out loud right there in the dirt driveway. The absurdity of it all would have been funny, if it wasn't so dangerous. Later that evening, as the sun bled orange across the fields, I sat on the porch with Duke, my old hound, nursing a cold beer and thinking. They weren't going to stop. Not with nasty letters. Not with empty threats. Karen and Rick had decided that my ranch, my home, was the next great community improvement project. And knowing HOA types, I knew exactly how they thought: make life unbearable until you surrender. I didn't have to wait long to see it start. The next morning, 6 SUVs rolled up to the gate like some suburban version of a raid. Men and women in matching Red Mesa Heights polo shirts poured out, carrying folding chairs, clipboards, and protest signs. One woman held a bullhorn almost as big as she was. "Karen, in her pink sun hat and manic energy, was at the front, rallying them like a general before battle. I leaned against the gate post, arms folded, heart pounding slow and steady. Rick swaggered up with a thick manila folder, slapped it against the fence, and grinned like he was about to hand me my eviction notice. "You've been officially annexed under Section 4B, he said. I raised one eyebrow. 4B of what? Monopoly rules? I asked dryly. Karen shoved her clipboard into my face. The board voted. You're part of Red Mesa Heights now. You have 30 days to pay back dues, or we escalate to legal remedies. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just smiled a slow, dangerous smile. You're not getting 1 inch of this ranch, I said quietly. Not today. Not ever. Rick puffed up like a toad. You'll regret this, Dawson. We've got deep pockets. You don't. I pulled my phone from my back pocket and started filming. Karen shrieked and tried to slap the phone from my hand, but I dodged easily, her manicured nails flashing harmlessly past. The camera caught it all, the threats, the illegal claims, even the attempted assault. This is private property, I said for the recording, voice calm but ringing through the Texas air. Any further trespass will be met with legal action. They backed off, grumbling, and within minutes the SUVs pulled away in a haze of dust. But I knew better than to think they were done. They were just getting started. That night, under a sky crowded with stars, I sat on my porch sharpening fence posts into new stakes. Not because I planned to fight with fists, but because I knew this would be a battle of willpower, documentation, and strategy. And if Karen and Rick thought they could outlast me, they were about to learn the hard way. I was the wrong rancher to mess with. A few days after the SUV circus at my gate, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would finally cool off. Wishful thinking. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the Arizona sun feels sharp enough to cut skin, when the black SUV rolled up. Not HOA board members this time. These guys were different. Clean suits, dark sunglasses, earpieces tucked behind their ears, the whole works. They didn't bother getting out at first, just sat there behind the tinted glass, staring at my ranch like they were already measuring where to put the Starbucks and the Whole Foods. Duke barked furiously from the porch, his hackles up. I stepped outside, arms loose at my sides, heart thudding steady. Eventually, the driver's door cracked open, and out stepped a tall man, thin as a whipcord, carrying a clipboard so thick it looked like it could kill a man if he swung it hard enough. Afternoon, he called, voice slick as oil. I said nothing, just waited. We're here on behalf of Dominion Land and Development Group, he continued, adjusting his expensive tie. You've probably heard of us. We're working with Red Mesa Heights HOA to improve this region, bring in new business, new opportunities. He smiled like he expected me to clap my hands in gratitude. I leaned a little heavier against the fence and finally said, I'm not selling. Not now. Not ever. The smile didn't falter. It just got colder. You misunderstand, he said. We're not here to buy. He flipped open the clipboard and held up a thick packet of papers. We've already filed eminent domain claims on behalf of the HOA to annex the surrounding properties, including yours. My blood went ice cold. Eminent domain, I repeated flatly. Correct. You have 72 hours to vacate voluntarily. Otherwise, the legal process will proceed. I crossed my arms. This ranch has been here longer than your entire damn neighborhood. You can't just steal it with a few signatures and a smile. The man shrugged. Take it up with the courts, he said smoothly. Oh. And you might want to lawyer up fast. These things tend to get messy. He slid the envelope through the bars of my gate, gave a two-fingered mock salute, and climbed back into the SUV. Within moments, they were gone, leaving behind nothing but dust, threats, and a sinking feeling in my gut. I tore open the envelope right there by the fence. Inside were glossy brochures, Vision for Tomorrow, they called it, showing rows of shiny new homes, shopping plazas, parking garages. Where my pasture stood now, They had drawn a golf course where my family's barn stood. They wanted to put a tennis court where my father's favorite oak tree grew, the one he planted with his own 2 hands. They had sketched a damn Starbucks. My hands shook with rage. I called Mr. McBride immediately. He answered after the first ring. They made their move. Huh? He said grimly. Yeah, I said. Voice tight. They're playing dirty. Eminent domain through HOA expansion. I heard papers rustling on his end. Good news is, they don't have the legal right. HOAs can't invoke eminent domain. Only government agencies can, and even then, there are strict rules. They're bluffing. Hard. And the bad news? I asked. They've got money, he said. Lots of it. They can drag you through the courts for years if they want to. Their plan isn't to win right away, it's to exhaust you. Bleed you dry until you give up. I stood there under the scorching sun. The open fields spread out around me. Every fence post, every blade of grass, every memory of my father's calloused hands building this place from nothing. I wasn't giving it up. Not for them. Not for anyone. What do we do? I asked. Mr. McBride's voice turned hard. We fight back. And we make it louder than they ever expected. That evening, I called a meeting. Neighbors from every corner of the valley crowded into my barn. Old farmers in battered hats. Young families clutching babies. Ranchers with dirt still under their nails from working the fields. I showed them the documents. I showed them the brochures. I showed them what Karen, Rick, and Dominion Land and Development had planned for all of us. The barn filled with low, angry murmurs. Then silence. Then a voice from the back. Old Mr. Granger, leaning on his cane, said it best. If they want a war, he rasped, then by God, let's give 'em one they'll never forget. We formed a coalition that night, the Ranchers Defense League, and the first battle cry was simple, not 1 inch. At first, our resistance was simple. We filed formal protests. We rallied local support. We held town meetings under the old oak tree behind my ranch house. Neighbors gathering in dusty boots and pickup trucks, clutching petitions and homemade signs. At every meeting, people shared the same story, Karen and Rick spreading lies about us. Dominion Land sending out glossy pamphlets promising luxury homes and endless prosperity. Claims that we were standing in the way of progress. It would have been almost funny, if it hadn't turned ugly. The first threat came in the form of a letter. No return address, no signature. Just 6 words scrawled across cheap paper in thick black marker. Sell now or suffer the consequences. I found it pinned to my front door one morning, flapping in the dry wind like a warning flag. I showed it to Mr. McBride, who took photos and added it to the growing file of evidence. Empty threats. Maybe, he said. Or maybe not. I muttered, feeling Duke press close to my side. Sensing the tension, we beefed up security. Motion sensors. Trail cameras hidden in the trees. Neighbors took turns doing late-night patrols along the property lines. For a while, it was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin itch. Then came the fire. It was just after midnight when Duke went wild on the porch, barking and howling, pawing at the door. I grabbed the shotgun and the heavy-duty flashlight and stepped outside. The ranch stretched before me, bathed in silver moonlight, silent except for Duke's snarling growls. Then, a crack of twigs, a flash of movement near the tree line. I swung the flashlight around and caught a figure in black sprinting across the pasture, something heavy in his hands. Without thinking, I chased him, adrenaline pounding through my veins. He hurdled the fence at the edge of the field, but in his rush, he dropped what he was carrying. It rolled toward me with a soft metallic clang. A homemade firebomb. Lit fuse hissing like an angry snake. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the canister without thinking, careful not to jostle it, and sprinted across the open pasture, away from the house, away from Duke. Every step felt like an eternity. At the far end of the field near the dried-out creek bed, I hurled the canister with everything I had and dove to the dirt. 3 heartbeats later. Whomp. Not a Hollywood explosion, but a deep, ugly boom that shook the ground and sent black smoke coiling into the sky. The blast set the dry grass ablaze instantly. Flames raced across the field like living things. Hungry and fast, I ran for the emergency hose near the barn, spraying as much water as the old pump could muster. Neighbors poured in, hauling shovels, buckets, anything they could grab. Together we fought the fire for what felt like hours, stamping it down, digging fire breaks, beating back the flames with sheer stubborn will. By the time the sun started to rise, our faces were black with soot, our arms trembling with exhaustion, but the ranch still stood. The fire hadn't reached the house. The livestock were safe. We had won this round. But it had come at a cost. Scorched earth, burned fence lines, blackened patches where green grass should have been. And worse, the knowledge that this wasn't just about legal battles anymore. Someone had tried to burn me off my land. The sheriff arrived at dawn. Grim-faced and silent. I showed him the canister's remains, the blast crater, the security footage showing a dark-clad figure sneaking across the pasture. "We're opening a criminal investigation," the sheriff said, voice low and hard. "Attempted arson, terroristic threats, maybe worse." Later that day, we got confirmation. The man who planted the bomb wasn't some random thug. He was a private security contractor hired by Dominion Land and Development at the urging of Karen and Rick. No background check, no permits, just muscle for hire. It hit the local news like wildfire. Small town ranch targeted by HOA extremists. Firebomb plot exposed in Red Mesa Heights. Support poured in. Donations. Volunteers. Lawyers offering to help for free. Suddenly, we weren't just a handful of stubborn ranchers anymore. We were a movement. Karen, Rick, Dominion, they had made one fatal mistake. They thought we would back down. Instead, they had woken a sleeping giant. And we were ready to fight like hell. The days after the firebomb attack were a blur of paperwork, news crews, and non-stop phone calls. The sheriff's office launched a full-scale criminal investigation. Local reporters camped out at the end of my driveway, hungry for any new development. Neighbors who had once been cautious started showing up at the ranch, shaking my hand, offering buys, asking how they could help. We had proof now. Proof of harassment. Proof of attempted arson. Proof that Dominion Land and Development, aided and abetted by Red Mesa Heights HOA, had crossed a line they couldn't walk back. Mr. McBride and our growing team of volunteer lawyers wasted no time. Civil suits were filed. Criminal charges were pressed. Petitions flooded the county courthouse demanding an immediate investigation into Red Mesa Heights HOA and its leadership. Karen and Rick tried to go silent at first, hunkering down behind their gated community fences like rats in a sinking ship, but the damage was done. One afternoon, about a week after the fire, I stood at the fence post where the fake annexation papers had once been shoved in my face. The sun was blazing overhead. The fields stretched out golden and unbroken. And down the long dusty road, a convoy of county sheriff cruisers rumbled into view. They rolled straight into Red Mesa Heights, straight up to Karen's big white house with the pink flower boxes and the smug little security cameras. Neighbors peeked out from behind blinds, gasping and whispering. I watched from a distance as two deputies knocked loudly on her front door. Karen, still wearing her ridiculous pink sun hat, answered, and the look on her face when she realized what was happening was priceless. They handcuffed her right there on the porch. For conspiracy, for harassment, for endangering public safety. Rick wasn't far behind. He tried to slam the door on the deputies, but they kicked it in like something out of a movie. He went down screaming about community rights and eminent domain like a lunatic. Both of them, Karen and Rick, were frog-marched to the cruisers, cameras flashing, neighbors filming on their phones. Within minutes, it was all over social media. The HOA revolution had crumbled into dust. Dominion Land and Development tried to backpedal, issued a half-hearted statement blaming miscommunication and overzealous local partners. But the damage was irreversible. Their big luxury housing project was cancelled. Their CEO had to resign after public outrage exploded across the county. As for Red Mesa Heights HOA, dissolved, gone. The county stepped in, revoked their charter, and placed the neighborhood under direct municipal governance. No more Karen, no more Rick, no more fake notices or phony annexation schemes. One evening, just as the sun dipped low behind the distant hills, I hammered a new sign into the ground at the entrance to my ranch. A big, heavy slab of steel, welded and painted by hand, private property. Established 1952. Not for sale, not for stealing. Neighbors cheered when they saw it. Some even asked if they could put up similar signs. It wasn't just my victory, it was ours. A small town standing up to big money, big egos, and bigger lies. Later that night, I sat on the porch with Duke curled up at my feet. The air was cool. The stars blazed like fire across the black velvet sky. For the first time in months, the ranch felt truly peaceful again. Safe. I thought about my dad, how proud he would have been. How he always said, "Land's not just dirt, son. It's memory. It's sacrifice. It's legacy. Never let anyone take it from you without a fight." I scratched Duke behind the ears and raised my glass to the stars. We had fought, we had won, and we had proven something that no amount of money could ever buy. The spirit of the land always runs deeper than greed. And some things you fight for to the very end. Not now, not ever.